Begin the current Daf Mesechta Kesuvos Daf Samach Tes. Begin on the top line of the Amud, where the Gemara continues the discussion of the previous Daf. We're discussing the Kesuba, the obligations that the husband has to the wife, including the feeding of the daughter. And we continue with the theme regarding as it relates to the assignment, what the girl could collect and what she cannot. The shiur trespass because they can cheskel to anytime Daf Chaim Peshem joining today's Daf. Some things we discuss in today's Daf are machlekes of goyim lid parnasim and the shabbatim. What happens if the items are actually sold off and providing a dunya for the same where there's an obligation from the estate? Question is, what do you do? Could she collect it from those areas that it was sold off or collateral to get that money from the estate to go get married for her ksuba? Machlekes regarding isin achasim, which is the exact amount that we say if we don't know what the father's intention would have been to give to his daughter now that he passed away, is that considered a yerusha or is that a chayv? Difference is obviously there's different halachas regarding yerusha or chayv for her to get her isin achasim. If you say isin achasim is a chayv habit, that it is like a baal chayv, like she's a creditor from the estate. Is she baal chayv de abba? Is she a creditor from the father, or a baal chayv de achim, the brothers? The difference is going to be regarding making a shvua, what type of quality she can collect from. That's the shaila. Who is she a creditor of? Machlekes of goyim parnasa or mezainis min amatalman. Could she collect the parnasa, which is, like we said, a key word for nedunya, and mezainis for food, from movable items, or could only be from karka? The difference when she gets her nedunya, which again the girl is going to get from her father, money to get married to her husband. When she's in the chayav, we said leifchus lamechamishim zuz, can't be less than 50 zuz. Nedunya la'acham yisa'av, after the father passed away, how much does she get to get married? And basan the zuz b'na'achin, until this is nachas, and then it's an exact tenth of the estate. And finally, the comes the mitzvah comes to Rabneis, comes up at the end of the daf that there's a mitzvah to fulfill the words of the person who passed away. So begin the current daf Samach Tes, the first words on the Amud. It's a continuation of the obligations of the brothers from the estate to give to the girl for her what's brought in the ksuba, that of the feeding of the girl, and also for the nedunya, what we call the parnasa. So Tola la Rav la Rebbe. The Gemara starts off with a story that Rav sent to Rebbe a letter asking him how he's doing, and he suspended in between between the lines. He asked him the following questions. He says, if let's say the brothers went and they were meshabed, meaning they made that their property was now indebted to someone else. What's the halacha regarding the daughter for her to get what she needs from those properties? That was the letter. That was the question sent in the letter that Rav asked to Rebbe. Now it's not clear what Rav was asking. Rabbi Shloimy was sitting in front of Rebbe when he received this question, this letter from Rav. So Rabbi Shloimy said to Rebbe, when Rav asked him that if the brothers were shibdu, that they were meshabed, that they made it now encumbered property that was now in someone else's possession, what was he asking? Machroi? Was he asking that it was sold off? A mishkana, or was just collateral? Meaning to say, if there's money over there, obviously the girl has to get food and the shafar and the dunya, but it's not by the brothers anymore. The brothers went and they meshabed it. But what does it mean that it's meshubed? Did they sell it off? Or did they just use it as collateral? Let's say for loans, people don't just give you loans. You have to have some type of collateral. They gave it as collateral, but it's not in their possession. What did they mean? What did Rav mean when he asked the question? So Rebbe said to Rebbe, what's the difference? Whether it's sold off, whether it's collateral, the halacha is mektin leparnasa. You go ahead and the girl could extract it if she wants to get the money for the dunya. The aim mektin lemezainis, and you cannot extract for the mezainis. Is what we said in the previous daf, that the halacha is, as the Gemara says in Mesechta Gittin, that mezainis doesn't have a set amount. So no one would ever buy anything or use collateral because she might need more food, and they'll collect whatever I bought. But the dunya is a tenth, is an exact amount. You know how much it is, so that you could collect from Mishabadim. So who cares if it's sold off or is it mashkin? It's going to be the same halacha anyway. From the dunya, yes, you'll be able to get, and from Zayn, it's not. That was what Rebbe responded to Rebbe. But the Gemara has a question on Verav, on the question of the shoyel. Ravu asked the question, why was he vague? If his question was regarding that when it's sold off, should have written that if machre ha'achin. And his question was regarding if it was just collateral. Right? That it's done for collateral. Why is he using this vague terminology of sheshibdui, which is not clear, as Rebbe was asking to Rebbe? Says the Gemara, Rav Tavai Kamabay. No, the question is Rav. That was his question. he wanted to know regarding both of these cases. And for Saba, he thought like this. If I'm going to write to him the case of selling, I don't know, I only know halfway the equation. If he's going to tell me, he's going to say, yes, that the girl could collect from even when the brothers sold it off. Well, yeah, then I would know for sure that if it's only collateral, for sure, which is not even totally sold off, it's just temporarily in possession of someone else as the collateral is, for sure she could extract from them. Great, but if he's going to answer to me, no, she cannot collect, okay, I only know regarding sold off. I still wouldn't know if it's only collateral, maybe then she could extract. So I don't want to say machre because I won't know regarding mishkanah. And if I write to him, what's Allah of the brothers use as collateral? Well, if he's going to respond to me that she cannot extract, okay, koshke b'chara. For sure, it's collateral, which is not even the possession of the lender, it's just collateral. For sure, when it's sold off, for sure you cannot extract. I would know that for sure then also. But he's going to tell me that she could extract from collateral. I still won't know regarding sold off, because maybe over there you cannot be mitzian. I'm going to write to him a vague terminology of shibud, the mashmahachi. It sounds like either one of them. And when he's going to respond to my question, he'll have to specify if they're both the same, or if there's a difference between them, and what does he say regarding the two of them. So never use the vague terminology. And again, we know Rebbe's answer. Rebbe's answer was it doesn't make a difference if it's mishkanah or if it's machadai. And Allah is mitziin l'parnasa, but you're not mitziin limazayim is getting parnasa as a set amount. But mezainis for tikkun olam, you're not going to go ahead and let them collect from that which was written off to someone else. That's the opinion of Rebbe. However, he disagrees. He says echadzeh ve'echadzeh. He says not only for mezainis, but also for parnasa, even for her nadunya, eimaitziin. If the brothers went and sold it off to other people, or even used as collateral, he disagrees with Rebbe. He says no, you cannot collect the parnasa, the amount of a nadunya, from the lekuchas. So you boil with the following question. This that he holds that the parnas you cannot collect from lekucha is from the one that the collateral is by. Is it because Shmilei had the Rebbe? He never heard Rebbe the Tana's teaching. Vishmilei, and had he heard him, Makabli would have accepted because Rebbe's a Tana. V'yichan's not. Oh, maybe he did hear about it, but he did not accept that teaching of Rebbe. So Mr. Toshma bring a raya that he heard it, but that he just didn't accept it. It's not like he never knew about it. He knew of Rebbe's teaching, but he didn't accept it halacha. I'll prove it to you. How am I going to prove it? Because he learns as follows. Mishanes, someone passed away. And he left over 2 daughters and a son. Now the first girl, she went, and she got, when she's getting married, which is halacha, like we said, the nadunya from the estate, she gets a 10th of the property for her dowry when she's getting married to her husband. Now, the second daughter didn't get a chance to get married at Shemei Sabeh. The son died. Now, what's significant about the son dying? Now the Yerusha, the whole inheritance is going to be split in front of these 2 girls. So what's the halacha now? So Rabbi Shloimy says, Shniya Vitra. The second daughter has lost her ability to get the 10th of the estate. It's really, the word Vitra is really that she's looking away, she's okay. In other words, we don't say that she first takes her 10th, like the first girl took, and then they divided. No, the one who got first, she got what she got. And the daughter on another daughter doesn't get East in the Chassim because you're both Yershim, you're both equally dividing the estate. When you're a girl and the boys are the ones who have the estate, you can't go with nothing. So they give you a 10th. But you are the Yershim now, there's no brothers now. So therefore you don't get a 10th of the estate. You're from the Yershim, and she just gets a Yerusha. She doesn't get an extra 10th. There's no point in getting a 10th. Yeah, she's not getting money. But the whole point of the 10th is you don't have anything. So we're going to give you something to take with the dowry. Hey, you got this huge amount of money. So therefore you don't get, that's what Rabbi Yechon says, you don't get that a 10th. She's mavater on that 10th. Now, on that Amar Chanina asks, he says, what do you mean? How can you say such a halacha? What Rabbi Yechon says. Says Gedolim Zu Amru, but greater than this they said, meaning even when the brothers were meshabed in a chasam, they went and they sold it off to other people. You know how strong it is, the ability to collect your what's called parnasa, your nadunya, your 10th that's owed to you? Even maitzian le parnasa, you could even extract it from consumers. If people bought it already, you could collect from it. Just like we said, you cannot collect just the daily food because that's not a set amount that you cannot extract. So says Rabbi Chanina to Rabbi Yochanan, V'at Amr, and you're telling me over here where the Nechasim are here. It's not even sold off to anyone. You tell me Shnia Vitra? The second one is losing out on that opportunity. How could you say she could even collect the Nedunya from a Shabbatim? For sure, if it's around, for sure, no, she's going to get it, and then they're going to divide Yerusha between them. That's what Rabbi Chanina asked under Rabbi Yochanan. Says the Gemara, then he said, now if it's true, as some Gesois have, that he just didn't hear about it, but had he heard about it, meaning he never knew this teaching of Rebbe, that what? That Metzin leParnasa, Bavei Metzin leMezainas, that was the question we had. Did he hear about it? And he wasn't Mekablo, or he never heard about it. Had he heard about it, he would have said, yeah, you're right, Rebbe said that, and you're Metzin leParnasa. Not like Rabbi Yochanan says you're not. If it's true that he didn't hear it, so namely, so Rabbi Yochanan should have responded to Rabbi Chanina in that dialogue, said, Man amra? Whoever said such a thing? Who said that Metzin leParnasa? So from the fact that he didn't say that, obviously he did hear it. He knew where Rabbi Chanina was quoting him, that Metzin leParnasa, but he didn't accept it. And that's why he didn't respond. He didn't retract from his halacha of shtei banis. He kept to his teaching, saying that no, she does not get a tenth, because even though Reb Chanina is saying, what do you mean? How could Gedolim is Amru? Even on Shabbat we collect. I know what you're telling me. That's Rebbe's teaching. I don't agree with that teaching. So don't slug me up. Don't ask me from that teaching, which if you hold to that, you should have to retract from your teaching in Shtei Banis, because even Shabbat like for sure she's going to take over here before they split it. No, he's not Makabel. So the Gemara says, no, it's not a right, it's not a proof. But Dimel maybe Lo Shmile. Maybe Rabbi Yochanan had not originally heard that teaching of Rebbe. And the truth is, V'chi Shmile, and when he actually did hear it, Kabul, he actually accepted it. And therefore, it's not a raya. Maybe when we quoted Rabbi Yochanan previously in his teaching, that was only before he heard of Rebbe. But when he subsequently heard from Rebbe, he actually would agree that Metzin leParnasa. So the question is, so that makes sense. Why? So when Chanina asked Rabbi Yochanan already heard it and he accepted, and that's why he didn't tell him Man Amra, because he knew he had already heard that there was Rebbe. So Vishani Hasam, but then the question is, so then why didn't he retract from his teaching of Shnia Vitra? He should have retracted, because if he agrees to Rebbe's teaching that you could collect Parnasa from Mishabadim, for sure this second girl should say, I first get my 10th, then let's split it. No, there it's different. Why? Because the Ikar Rebach Pesa. Because it's a huge gain. She's getting the half of the Yerusha. So therefore, that's obviously way more than the 10th. So therefore, that's why she's not going to contest it. Meaning, Shabbatim, yeah, of course, she could collect. We hold like Rebbe. But don't ask me, Reb Chanina, from this halacha of Rebbe to what we're discussing over here with 2 girls, because no, she will be mavata. But Trace actually asked, what do you do if there was 10 girls? Where there's no Rebach Basin, because that would have been the 10th anyway. What do you say over there? That's the person wants to know. But here, when it's 2 girls, you're getting the half Yerusha. Do me a favor. You don't have to get every little, to get the 10th. You're getting whatever. So therefore, she's mavata. And if it's not a raya which Rabbi Yochanan held, if he didn't hear Rebbe's teaching, and if he would have, had he accepted, or he heard but he didn't accept, because we just explained how you could have said it, even had he not heard it, but then he heard it and he accepted it, but still it's not a raya to ask from that, like Chanina is asking from that teaching, because you could say that's different, because there's Revach base over here in this case of the 2 girls. Now, however, the Gemara continues to ask, on this answer that the Gemara gave of Ikar Ravach Beisa, that since there's a Revach, she's not going to collect her 10th, because she's anyway getting half the Yerusha. So on that, Amalei Rav Yemel Rav, she says, wait a second, if that's the case, you tell me, because she's getting a huge gain, a huge windfall, I'm Moichel, I don't need to get my 10th. Ashkecha Metzia Ba'alma, let's say she happens to find the Metzia. She's walking so much, she finds this big attaché case with the, I don't know if they have that anymore, because no one has, but there used to be the good old days, you would find huge attaché full of cash, whatever, right? So the Ikar have a base where she gets a huge gain for herself. You tell me, and she's getting married, they're not going to give her 10th of the estate because she got this huge windfall? So Amalei says, no, I know what I was saying was, this estate that you are yarshening, from that estate, you don't have to take a 10th more. Meaning, something happens from outside, from your mazel, that's no shaykhs. But over here, from this money, from this estate, you want to take up a 10th. You're already taking half the Yerusha. you don't have to take until she's mavater from this money itself. It says, it's okay, I don't have to take a 10. It's good, I'm getting half, the $5 million that it's splitting. I don't need to take the 10. And that was what I was saying, but a Metzia would be different. Now, continue on this theme regarding this halacha of the Isin Nechasim that a Yisayim gets. So there's a machlekes exactly how to qualify this halacha. Omar Meimah says Bas, a girl, this daughter that we were masakin that she gets 1/10 of the estate for her nedunya when she's getting married. Yereshes says a Meimar, she gets it in the halachic medium of Yerusha, as if she's a Yarshin, as if she's inheriting 1/10. That's how they instituted this halacha of Isu Nechasim. So now the Gemara says, only Ravashi, Ravashi is the Meimar. Is that true? Let's say the brothers want to pay her off with money. Are you going to tell me they can't give her 1/10 in money, and they got to give her whatever the items are that they are yarshing from the father? I'm like, he says yes. They can't just get rid of her with money because she's a yarshin. She gets 1/10 of like the fields and whatever it is. So on that they say, let's say they want to get rid of her just to like give her one land. And you can tell me they can't just get rid of her by giving her just one land that's worth 1/10. They have to give her every single land. So I'm like, he says yes. They cannot get rid of her by money and not with one land. If she wants to, she can take a portion of every single piece of property, and they can't just go ahead and give her one piece, one area, one land because she's a yarshin. She's getting 1/10 of Yerusha. That's the opinion of a Meimah. However, Rav Ashi, he says no. Baz Baal Scheiv says the daughter is considered as a creditor of 1/10 of the estate, and they could get rid of her with money or with one piece of land, whatever it's worth, 1/10 of the estate. And the Gemara says actually, actually, Amima also retracted. He didn't hold that she's a Yedeshes. He agreed to Rav Ashi that she's a Baal Scheiv. How can I prove this? Because the Amar of Yommi b'reid Rab Nechumi says, was in front of Amima. There was a certain woman that came in front of Amima. She was like, I'm getting married, and my right is to get 1/10 of the estate. And he says, I saw by Amima that he held the iboy that if the brothers wanted to to pay her off and just get done with her with money, have misalatla, that they could get rid of her. How did I realize this? Because I heard that in the conversation there in the Bezdin that the brothers were telling her, look, ilo havalon zuzi. Had we had money, select the mezuzah, we would get rid of you with money. The ishtik will and Amim was quiet, and he didn't tell the brothers that's the nadish kaitan. You can't get rid of her money. He didn't say that. So therefore, obviously, he held that they could because she's a balas chayv. She's not a yedesh, and even Amimar, who originally said yedesh, have retracted and held that as a balas chayv. Now says the Gemara. Now that we know she's a balas chayv, we have another question that we're coming into now. Now that you say balas chayv, that she's a creditor, who is she a creditor of? The Abba of the father, or the Achi, or the brothers? So the Gemara says, what's the difference? Who cares? Anyway, she's collecting 1/10 as a creditor. What does that mean? So the difference is, is she going to collect in the medium grade property without an oath, or v'zibudis b'shvua, or the lowest grade property with an oath? Meaning, if she's a creditor of her father has to give her the nedunya, so she's only going to be able to collect in the lowest grade, and she could only collect with an oath, because you cannot collect from the estate of the orphans, as the Gemara says, only from the lowest grade and only with an oath. But if you say she's her brother's creditors, so there's no lipar b'nichsi yisayim. They're not orphans forever. No, it's you. So depending on who is she a creditor of is going to make a difference with grade and also if it's with an oath or not. So Gemara says, what's the Allah? So Gemara says, Toshama, let's bring a right from the following story. What happened was that Rav Ashi passed away, and also his son Rav Sama passed away. Now his daughter was coming to collect her Isu Nechasim. So the Gemara tells us that the Ravina, Agvi Labrati de Rav Ashi, Ravina was collecting for the daughter of Rav Ashi, Mimar, the Raid Rav Ashi, again Rav Ashi, her father passed away, so he was collecting from Mar, who is the son of Rav Ashi, Beinanis Vishaloi Bishvua. So obviously, she's a creditor of the brothers, because it was from the father. You would not get Beinanis, it would be Ziburis and it would be Bishvua. Moreover, he collected Mibreid Rav Sama. If you remember, one that we just mentioned, one of the brothers was Rav Sama, but the Rav Sama himself, who was her brother, he passed away. So not only did she lose her father, her brother passed away. So he was collecting mibreid of Sambre Rashi from the grandson, meaning from the Yarshums, from the son of Sambre Rashi. But there he collected Ziburis B'Shvua. Why did he collect the lowest grade with an oath? Because who was she a creditor of? His father, which was her brother. But her brother passed away. So now when she wants to collect from her brother's son, that's Nichse Yisayim. So that you have to collect only Ziburas with Shvua. Now, so again, that answered our question. Now we see that she's a creditor of the brothers, not of the father. He sent L'Rabbi Bar Rav Huna Zuta Min Arda. There was a woman that was coming in front of Reb Nechemia, where she needed to collect a tenth of the estate where Rabbi Rav Huna, his fellow colleague, lived. So she asked from Reb Nechemia, do me a favor, send me a letter. This is where it starts off. All these people come with letters from one Rav to another one to different places to help her, to get what she needs to get. So he sent to Rabbi Rav Huna, when this woman comes in front of you, collect for her the tenth of the estate. But he added on a film, it's stroiblo. What's it stroiblo? That's the base of the mill as it is. Because, meaning that's considered as karka, although it's a mill, which is not land itself, but it's connected to the ground. So therefore gets the halachic status as karka. So this halacha of where we're collecting from karka, you could collect even from the stroiblo. Amar Rashi says also when we were by the Shiur of Kahana, we would collect a film of amud debasi, even from the rental of the homes. So let's say the estate had homes that they rented out, that's considered as karka, which Tracy actually asked. I don't understand. If it's rentals from homes, obviously you could collect as a house as a property, and if it's rental that was already collected, which it's only the money, well that's metalton, so you cannot collect from that. So what's the case he's talking about? So he says talking about where they would rent a house for the year, and the renter is halfway through the lease. So though he's obligated on what he was there for that amount of time, the chiddush is it's not considered as metalton, that money was paid, because schiras ein mishtalim is a little bit. It's only paid at the end, so it's still considered as karkoi, and that was the chiddush in that they could collect that from that rental money of the halfway through the year. Sholach lei Rav Anna Rav Huna. Continue on this theme, Rav Anna sent Rav Huna the following statement. He says, Huna, Chavren, Huna, our friend, our colleague, Shlom, greetings. When this woman comes in front of you, again, he was trying to say is one rabbi to another rabbi, do me a favor, help out this woman. With these, they have these nice, with the stamps and these nice letters, says, please help this person out. And he sent it to him. Now, when the shliach, when the telegram, whatever it is, came in front of him, and Rav Shesha was sitting in front of Rav Huna, Huna was very, very bothered that he called him Huna Chavra, like as if we're like buddies. Huna, our colleague. So Amalei, so Rav Huna said to Rav Shesha, who was sitting in front of him, he said, Zil Amalei, he said, go tell him in this degrading terminology, like I'm going to tell you, Ubishamta Yehi Mandula Amalei, and whoever doesn't say this, meaning which basically telling Rav Shesha, you don't say the wording that I'm telling you, because it was a very sharp lashon, you'll be excommunicated. I want you to say the following words to Rabbanan. Onan, onan. From where do you say that we should collect for this woman the tenth of her estate? Mimikarkoi? Mimitalkali? Is it from only properties or is it from movable items? Now, one more question I want you to answer me. This is what he told Rav Shesha to ask Rabbanan. Uman Yosef Bei Marzicha Beresha. Who, by a house of mourning, sits in the front when they would sit around by the table? Because you could tell who's sitting by the head, because the biggest one, he sits at the head of the table, and the second one is to the side of him, and so on and so forth. So who sits at the head of the table by the house of mourning? So Azar Rav Shesha had no choice. Rav Huna put him up to excommunication if he doesn't say exactly these words. He went, L'kamid Rabban in front of Rabban. Somebody said to him, Mar, you, the master, our rabbi, you're a great person. Now, Rav Huna is Rabbi de Rabbi, is the master of the master, meaning he's your rabbi. Now, he was saying it like this to appease him, that shouldn't get angry that he was being an agent to say over such a message. So he was showing like Chavnish Kembrere, he was forcibly being an agent to say over these things. And moreover, he said, B'shamuti Shomet Mandul Yamalei. Rav Huna made an excommunication against someone that won't say the following words. And he says, and if not for a nida, a chirim, I wouldn't be saying these words. But this is what he told me to tell you. Anan. This he's saying I should collect for this woman a tenth of the estate. Is it karka? Is it real estate? Or even movable items? And the second question he asked you was, who sits by Marzicha in the front? So Ravan was very upset. He went in front of Marukva. He says, Chazimar, does the master see Marukva? Marukva was like the dying, he was coming to the defamatory language over here. Mar Hecha Shalcha Rav Huna, Rav Huna sent to me, on, like this, like, on, Shleima, Marzicha the Shalcha. Also, he sent me this wording, Marzicha, lay down in my ear. I don't even know what he was asking me. What's this Marzicha? Who sits in the head by the Bay Marzicha? So Amalei Marukva said to me, okay, Emily, easy, tell me exactly, as you continue on the base, Gufa de Uvda. Tell me the beginning of the story, Heichahaba, what happened? What did you send him first? The Ruv has to get the big picture. People come complaining, says, yeah, and they make machaz. Tell me, give me the whole story. I want to understand, what did you send him first? So Amalei said to him, says, this and this was the story. This is what I had sent him. So Amalei says to him, you, a person that doesn't even know what Marzicha is, you're going to send Rav Huna Chavrin? Our friend Huna? Of course he got upset at you. Who are you to talk to Rav Huna that type of a way? Obviously, that was why he responded to you in this umbrage of talking to him like that. Now, says he, my Marzicha, what is Marzicha? When we ask who sits by the Bay Marzicha in the front, what's Marzicha? It's an oval, it's a mourner. Where do we find this? In the Pasuk in Yirmiyah. It says, Koyama Hashem, so says Hashem. Al Tavai Beis Marzeach V'Goymer. Don't come into the house of the Marzeach. And like it says over the Al Telech V'Goymer, etc., don't go lispay to eulogize, Valtanalem. It's talking about all mourning. So you see that Marzeach is a terminology of an oval, and that was what he was asking about the base oval who sits in the front. So Amr Avavo, he says, how do we know that it's the mourner who sits in the front, on the head? It says the Pasuk in Iyov. It says, Evcher Darkam. If I would choose their path, Ve'eshav Rosh and sit in the front, Ve'eshkin Kemelch Begdudim, we're going to dwell like a king by the troops, Kasher Avelim Yinachim, it's talking about sitting in the front, and saying, like Avelim Yinachim, like mourners consoles. Now the Gemara wonders, Yinachim, consoling, sounds like a Chedim Mashma, sounds like actually others, meaning, Kasher Avelim Yinachim, like those who mourn, like those who console mourners. Because saying Yinachim, they will console the mourners. So how can you tell? It sounds like those who are Menachem are sitting in the front, not the mourners. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak, he says, no, Yenuchim Kesiv. It's written Yenuchim. What does that mean? There's no Dekudis in the Torah. But Rashi says that you don't say a patach by any letter, only if you have an aleph or a hey near it. Or if based on the Nekudis, the vowelization beneath it, which that's in place of a letter, as if it's written like Yud Nun Aleph Ches Mem, Yenachem. Now, since there's no aleph, so obviously, based on the Messiris of the written word, if you just had the letters, you would read it Yenuchim. So although we might read it Yenachim, but the lettering of the Torah, because it doesn't have an aleph, is coming to tell you that it's a reflexive. It's the one who's consoled himself. In other words, like the mourner who's consoled, that's the one who's Yeshiv B'Reish, that's the one who sits in the front. That's the source for this halacha. Marzucha Amam Hachi brings a different source, the pasuk in Amos. Says Besor Mirzach Seruchim. There's going to approach the Mirzach that's excessive. What does that mean? So the way, at least we're darshaning here in the Gemara, is that the word Mirzach is a compound word. Mir v'zach. Mar, someone that his soul is bitter, which if someone lost a relative, he's a mourner, he's bitter. V'zach. What is zach? Zach is actually usually a term for arrogance. Now the reason why in this context, not that he's arrogant, is actually he's disconnected. Someone who's actually arrogant is very disconnected from who he is, but the mourner is disconnected because of the trauma that he went through, and he becomes fragmented. So that's the mirzach, is nasa sar l'sruchim, that's besor mirzach. The mirzach, which is mar v'zach, which is terminology of the oval, he is a sar, like as if it said with a sin, he's a like the leader l'sruchim, for the great ones that come to comfort him, the excessive, like a bigger, he's the leader of them, meaning he's Yoshev B'Reish. Now the Gemara concludes for this whole discussion that we were having in the previous daf and this daf regarding how does the daughter collect. So Amar Rabbi gives a blanket statement. He gives Hilchas Halach is a woman collects mimikarkoi v'loy mimitalpli, only from real estate and not from metalpli, which Tosfos points out a few places, and here he also mentions that in today's times it's different because not everyone has real estate, and actually we collect it all from metalpli. But according to Talmudic law, it's bein l'mezayni, bein l'ksuba, bein l'panasa, for her sustenance, for her ksuba, meaning a woman from a husband, or for panasa, for nedunya from a father. All these things are collectible only from real estate and not from metalpli. The reason for that is because people only are semech das on real estate, not metalpli. But then later times, Jews didn't even they weren't even allowed to own real estate, and therefore in the times of the Rishonim, they said already that they made it already for metalpli and not just for that of karka. Now look at the next Mishnah. I think with this theme about the nedunya, about the girl getting money from her father when she's getting married. So a related halacha says the Mishnah hamashlish mois labitay. If someone is giving money to a third party for the needs of his daughter, to buy for her a field or a nedunya, or the dowry when she's going to get married, and the father gives it over to a third party, people open up a trust fund. He's going to be alive, he's not going to be alive. There's a trust fund, something that they should give this for her when she gets married. Now, V'hiyah marriage, the girl says after she gets married, Nemen bali alai. I trust my husband. People are so innocent when they get married. But it says, I trust my husband that he's not going to keep it for himself. Give it to him. Let him buy the field that I want. So the halacha is, Yasa shlish mashal hushlish b'yoda divrei meir. Meir says, nope. The third party has to do what he was authored to do, and he should buy the field that the father said, and don't listen to the girl to give it to the chassan, to give it to him, to the husband, to do what he wants to do with it. Because mitzvah l'kayim divrei meis. There's a mitzvah to fulfill the words of the dead person. He said, do this and this, what he had told to the third party. That's the opinion of Meir. On that, Rabbi Yisrael, he disagrees. He says, what do you mean? Let's say this was the field that the father had authored the third party to buy. But he waits l'achra, and she wants to sell it. So, of course she could sell it, because it's hers now. So it's sold now. In other words, what are you gaining by listening to the father and buying the field? Even if there's no money, but the field was already bought and she wants to sell it, it would be sold. So of course you listen to her not to buy the field and give her husband the money that he wants to invest in some Ponzi scheme or this and that when they just get newly married. I mean, give it to him. Because she anyways could take the field and sell it and go ahead. So what's the point of listening to the father? Which Tosfos actually points out, Remy actually would hold that no, she cannot sell it. The father knows, he's smart. He says, I know what's going to happen. Your husband's going to be all excited and green, you know what I'm saying? But trust me. And the Remy holds it, no, and that she's not allowed to go ahead and do as she says the chassan should do. Now, the Mishnah qualifies, which Rashi explains, the Gemara is going to tell us who's saying these closing statements, because we had two opinions in the Mishnah, Remy and Rabbi Yisi, but the Mishnah qualifies, but remember, when do we say that we listen to her? Is Begedayla. Is when she's an adult. But if she's a minor, what a minor is doing has no halachic significance whatsoever. Now the Gemara explains these machlekes in our Mishnah at greater detail in Tarman and the following brayso. Someone gives monies for a third party that should end up by his son-in-law, meaning that they should buy a field for his daughter that they should have when they get married. V'hiyah medicine, she says, no, I don't want to do like my father had said. Yinastim labali, let my husband get it, let him do with the money as he pleases. Says the Mishnah, min hanisuin, if it's from marriage, then it is shus biyada. Then she has permission to do as she wants to, meaning even the father did not entertain to give it over to a third party only until she gets married. When she's married, then the husband already has rights to eat the payraise, he has utility of it, and therefore then, yes, the girl could say, my husband could choose to do as he pleases. And then the husband could do whatever he wants. But in the Edison, if they're only engaged, then Yasa Sholish Mashalosh B'yod Divrei Meir. Then Remeir says, okay, then no. The third party has to do as he was told to do. The husband, the chassan cannot choose to do, the girl cannot say, let my chassan choose. No, has to be as the third party. That's Remeir. V'yisem, he says, different criteria. Remeir differentiates between Nesuin and Erison. Rabbi Yisi differentiates between age. He says, an older girl, an adult, then Beimin and Nesuin, Beimin Eresin, whether she's married or engaged, she has the choice to go ahead and say what should be done, if her chassan should be able to do as he pleases or not. Whereas Ketana, a minor, Beimin and Nesuin, Beimin Eresin, whether married or engaged, the third party has to do as he was told to do. So the Gemara says, my benai. What's the difference between them? Now, what's the question? The question is, there's really two possible cases that they're disagreeing about. You could say they're disagreeing about an adult, a girl that's a gedayla, and that according to a mayor, he's saying, not like Rabbi Yisi. Yisi says if she's an adult, she could choose to do as she pleases. The mayor is saying, if she's engaged, that's not enough, even though she's a gedayla. So are they disagreeing about the case of a gedayla that's arusa? Or you can say they're disagreeing about the case of when she's a katana, which according to a mayor, if she's married, that's going to work. According to Rabbi Yossi, since she's a katana, it's not going to work. So what's the case that they're disagreeing about? As the Gemara explains, if you say the difference between them is when she's a minor, but she's married, that's the difference between them, which Tosfos says, meaning even that case. For sure, the next case, if we done with the we're going to end up saying that actually is the one case between them. That for sure. But the question is, are they disagreeing also about the case of when she's a minor, but she's married? What would you say? Did a mayor hold Harashus B'yada? Yes, she has the choice to do as she pleases, because this that the mayor said that from Nisuin, there's Rashus for her to do. He didn't differentiate, that would be even a Ketana. And for us, Rabbi Shloimy is coming to say that no, Nami, even if she's married, only Gedola in, only if she's an adult, Ketana loy, but if she's a minor not. If you think they're disagreeing about that case, says the Gemara, then Ema Sefer. Then look at the last words of our Mishnah. This was a brisa that we're discussing, which is elaborating on the halach of our Mishnah, where they disagree over there. Look at the last words of the Mishnah. The Mishnah ended off by saying, when did we say this halacha b'gedola? We said, Abba b'ketana, but by minor, ein ma'aseh ketana klum. The actions of a minor have no halachic significance. Now the question is, Haman Ketanila, who said these closing words? Elam Rabbi Yisi, which would sound like that, because it said Dibri Amed, and then it said Rabbi Yisi, and it ends off after his statement. If you say it's Rabbi Yisi, the problem is it can't be Rabbi Yisi. Why not? From the opening words of Rabbi Yisi, you already know those statements. That Rabbi Yisi only told us that you listen to her only by Gedayla. Where do you see that? Because the Amar Rabbi Yisi, what were the words of Rabbi Yisi in the Mishnah? He says, he says, wait. He says, Rameh, what are you talking about? She can't choose to tell her chassan to do as she pleases. You have to listen to the third party, and you have to buy that field that the father said. He says, look, I'll tell you a svara, that let it be a field. If she wants to sell it, it would be sold from right now. So why do I have to buy it and then sell it? Let her do and give it to a chassan to do as they please. Okay, that was the statement that he says. But says the Gemara, it sounds like from the fact that he explained his reasoning by saying, okay, it's a field, and she would want to sell it. Wait a second, what if she would want to sell it? Who could sell? A child cannot sell. Memcha is only by an adult who's able to sell. Sounds like Gedoyla, Rabbi Yisi was coming from an adult girl. The Bazavini that she's able to sell in, that's what we would say. Look, she could sell it anyway, so why buy it in the first place? But Katana love Bazavini, but a minor who cannot sell. Oh, then lie. Then no. Then what? We wouldn't say that she could do as she pleases. So we already know the Rabbi Yisi is only talking about by Gedoyla, not by Katana. So you can't say that the closing statements are Bamed Vamorim. You already told me, inherent in your words is this Bamed Vamorim. Ella, obviously, who's the closing words of the Mishnah? It's not Rabbi Yisi, it's Reb Okay, but then you have to see that word's missing, and you have to say as follows. Reb Meir said in the Mishnah, Yasa Shalosh Mashalosh B'Yada, that the third party does as he was told to do. Now these are the words that are missing in the Mishnah. Bamed, when we say this he actually said in the Bryce and not in the Mishnah. I mean, the Ederson is only from engagement that we listen to the third party. But if there's marriage, then there's permission for her to do as she pleases, like we said these words in the Brisa. But there's another qualification. That's only Begedoyla, when she's an adult. Begetana, when she's a minor, Ein Ma'aseh Ketana Klum. What a minor does has no halacha significance. Again, it has to be Remei because it can't be Rabisi. So obviously, when Remei said in the Brisa that from Nisuin there's Rishus B'Yada, that must have been talking about not every Nisua, Not like the tzad that we had to say that Meir is disagreeing on Rabbi Yossi, holding that if you're Nesua, even when you're Katana. No, that must be by Gedolah, not by Katana. So that can't be the case they're disagreeing about. And like Gedolah, when the Eidus in the given obviously the difference between them is only the case of when she's an adult from engagement. When Meir said, oh no, you only engage, Yasa Sholish, the third party has to do what he was appointed to do, even if she's an adult. That Rabbi was saying that no, since she's a Gedolah, that we listen to her, but it cannot be the case of the Nesua, because everyone agrees she has to be as a Gedolah. The only question was, from the Eidasin, that Rabbi Yossi is going to be the more lenient, and Meir is going to be stringent because she's only engaged and she's not married. Now, halachically, Itma, we learn, Rabbi Huda Meshmul, he says, halachic Rabbi Yossi. Halachic is like Rabbi Yossi, that if she's an adult, we always listen to her, even if she's just engaged. Whereas Rav Nachman, he says, halachic is like Rabbi Meir, that no, if she's only engaged, you don't listen to her even if she's an adult, as Rashi says, because there's a mitzvah to fulfill the words of the dead person, at least when she's not Rusa. When she's married, that's different because already the husband has already the rights to utility. But when she's engaged, even if she is an adult. Now the Gemara brings a story to end off this discussion with Ilfa. Ilfa, there was the name of a sage. He suspended himself from the mast of a sail, which is this like a stunt he was doing. Which this story is brought in Masechtas Tainis. Why was he doing such a stunt that he was suspending himself from the mast of a ship? It looks like a film or something. You see this guy hanging from the mast. Is because what happened was they appointed Rabbi Yechanan to be the Rosh Hashiva when Ilfa went out to work. When he came back, they said to him, "Look, had you stayed and you learned yeshiva," sounds like one of these stories. And the guy is like looking back at his life. He says, "They wouldn't have made Rabbi Yechanan the Rosh Hashiva. You would have been the Rosh Hashiva. You went out to work. That's it. In this community, that we don't take, you don't become the Rosh Hashiva if you're going out to work." So he went and he hung himself from the mast of a ship, and where they hanged the mast from. And Amr, he said, "Ika de asi de amali milsa." If anyone's going to come along and tell me, any of the brises of from Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Shia, I'm not going to answer him from a Mishnah. I'll throw myself off from this mast and I'll drown. In other words, even though I went out to work, I didn't forget my learning, and I could rectify all the brises that were organized Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Shia in their brises. I'll tell you a source for that from the Mishnayos that was organized by Rebbe throughout Shas. And that's why he picked Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Shia, because those are the primary brises, as we say in general. Any brise that was not taught by Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Shia, you can't ask from them in the Mishnah. It says, I can tell you, I could source every brisa in the Mishnah. Ask me any question, and if I don't have the answer, I'm going to jump off this boat. So Asar Husaba, there was an elder that came along, and Tanale, he taught in front of him the following brise, and he wanted to hear from him, show me a source from the Mishnayos that Rebbe organized. The brise goes like this. Or even if someone says, to new shekel, give a shekel, which is a half a selah, lebonai b'shabbos. My sons, I want you to give them, when he's passing away, a half a selah per week. Now the problem is, it's actually they actually need a selah a week. They cannot be fed with a shekel. A shekel is a half a selah. They wouldn't be able to provide their daily sustenance. So Allah says the Brayso Neislam selah. You give them a selah. Because had the father known that the price of food is going to go up, that's going to be inflation, that they're going to need a selah, he would never have said a shekel. He just didn't know that, like we had recently, how the price of inflation. So you give them a selah. But if let's say he says that al titnu lehem ella shekel, don't give them but a shekel. So here he's protesting. He's not going to make them a Yerushin, but in the way that he's describing, because he's being explicit. I don't want you to give them but a shekel. Then ain't there's a shekel. Then you actually only give them a shekel. They can't provide whatever it is. They'll have to figure it out. You only give them exactly like he said. Now, Vimama, let's say he says a different phrase. He says in Mesu. So let's say my children, he says, dies without any children. That Yirshu Achem Tachtem, that these other people should inherit it in their place. Then actually, Bein Shama to know whether he says give it as the first terminology, which we said when he says give a shekel, we actually give them a selah if they need it. Or Bein Shama al Titna, whether he says the second terminology, we said he says don't give but that amount, which we said you only give that amount. Here in this case, it doesn't make a difference what terminology he said. Ein Noshma El shekel, you're only going to give a shekel. Why? Because we don't want to create a loss for those who come after his sons. because since he made those others Yorshim after his sons, he's most definitely was specifically saying to give only a shekel to them, because he wants to have that after his children, he wants those people should Yarshin it after them. That's why he's mentioning them. So he's specifically saying a shekel. What's his money?
His children.
But his money's here.
But isn't his
and they're also Ba'ilam. He's just saying what should happen afterwards. It's not.
He's still around.
No, they're not Yarshining his whole thing. So he's giving them this amount a week. And after them, I want it all to go to those people. So here, you're always going to give them only a shekel, even if it's Tnu. So that was a brisa. So this elder asked him, he's hanging from the ship over here, Peter Pan, whatever his name is, and tell me which Mishnah is the source. Somebody said to him, Hamani, who is this? In other words, that when he tells them to only give a shekel, that they only give a shekel, even though at the end of the day they're going to inherit all the estate, still when their mind is, we only give them a shekel every week, and the rest they're going to have to get from tzedakah, which Rashi just says, and don't ask on this halacha that we learned of Memchesem and Aleph, that the father has no rights to make his sons wealthy and to throw themselves on Time Shabbos on tzedakah. What do you mean? He's saying give them only a shekel and they're going to have to get the rest in tzedakah. He has this huge estate. That's not difficult. That halacha we said in Daf Memches was talking about where he tells his son, don't bury the father from his own estate. And it's his own money. So therefore we don't listen to him to bury him from tzedakah, to go to chesed shalemes, to make his sons wealthy. But over here, the estate is not the orphans. It's only based on how the father's commanding it should be. So therefore it's not really there. So he has a right to do that. He says, you want to know who says this halacha, which Mishnah it's from? As we continue above Einim and Aleph, that's from Meir here of our Mishnah. Dama that he says that the third party should do as he was told to do, even if the daughter is a gedolah, if she's engaged, because he says mitzvah kind of divames. It's a mitzvah to fill the words of the dying person. And the same thing over here that you're going to give a shekel per week because of what the father said. That's the mayor of our Mishnah that mitzvah kind of divames. You do with the third party, even though you say, "What? Who cares? What? I'm a girl. I could sell it, whatever." No, you do exactly as he said. Now, however, Rav Chizah Marokva says Hilchos Halacha is whether it says to give this amount. Whether it says don't give but that amount, it actually Neislam called talking. We actually do give them their needs. You don't give just a shekel. So how can you say that? How come when we rule halacha grab mayor, the halacha like a mayor, don't say mitzvah kind of mes. If the mes says give only shekel, give only shekel. That's the price that he sourced from halacha b'meir. So that's by everything else that you fulfill the words of the dead person. Here, meinach nichale. Now the father is pleased. He wants that his children should have whatever they need. He said this, don't give them more than that. That was Lazarzune who the Asa, he was just coming to be Mazarez them, to have them be diligent, to try to be industrious, to make their money, to have food, that they shouldn't be famine, that they shouldn't be famished, they shouldn't have with no money. He says, they're not going to get. So they're not going to be reliant on the father's money. They're going to work, they're going to make their own money. But of course the father would never desert his children, and therefore they are going to get. Thank you to any time.